Commander Jake Harrison looked out the window of his ship. Space was dark and cold, but today it was filled with enemy ships. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were coming for Earth, and they meant to destroy everything. The alien ships were big and scary. They looked like metal sharks with teeth made of weapons. Jake had seen what these ships could do. 3 human colonies were gone, just dust floating in space now. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrians, and they thought humans were weak. "Sir, we have a message coming in," said Lisa Park. She worked the radio on their ship. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. Everyone was scared. How could they not be? The enemy had so many ships. Jake stood up straight. He was the commander of the ship called Vigilance. It was a good ship with good people, but it was just one ship against an army. Still, he would not show fear. His crew needed him to be strong. The big screen in front of them turned on. An alien face appeared. It was ugly and mean-looking. The creature had 4 arms and skin like a snake. Scars covered its face from old battles. This was their leader, the one called War Prime Kethvol. "Humans of the 3rd planet," the alien said. Its voice was deep and full of hate. "Your kind has grown too much. You build too many ships. You take too many worlds. This ends now. Give up your fleet and become our slaves, or we will kill you all like we killed the others." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. The Centauri colonies had been peaceful. Farmers and scientists, families with children. The aliens had killed them all, just to send a message. No mercy, no chance to run, just death. Admiral Carlos Martinez stepped forward. He was the boss of all human ships, an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in many wars, but never one like this. Never against odds so bad. "War Prime," Martinez said. His voice was steady and calm. "We have a different idea. Leave our space now, go back to your worlds. No one has to die today." The alien made a sound like laughing, but it was not funny. It was the sound a predator makes before it kills. "You face the power of 7 star systems, human. We have 3,000 ships. You have less than 200. What can you possibly do to us?" Captain Amy Rodriguez stood next to her control panel. She knew things the alien did not know. Secret things. Humanity had been preparing for this day for a long time. They had built weapons the galaxy had never seen. Weapons that could change everything. But the aliens did not know this. They saw human ships and thought they were weak. They saw human colonies and thought they were easy targets. They had no idea what humans could really do when they were angry. "Our threat is not in how many ships we have," Martinez said quietly. "It is in how we think. Humanity follows something we call the rule of mercy. We always leave one enemy alive to tell others what happened. Consider this your only warning." The alien's 4 eyes got narrow. It was angry now, insulted. How dare these weak humans threaten the mighty Zephyrian Empire? Your mercy will kill you all. We attack when the sun rises. The screen went black. The alien was gone, but his threat remained. In a few hours, the battle would begin. 3,000 alien ships against 200 human ones. It looked hopeless. But Jake knew something the aliens did not. He had been in the secret meetings. He knew about the hidden weapons. He knew about Project Lazarus and the terrible things it had created. The galaxy thought it knew humans. They had seen human doctors who healed the sick, human teachers who shared knowledge, human diplomats who made peace. They had never seen humans wage war. Martinez turned to face his officers. The weight of command was heavy on his shoulders. Millions of human lives depended on what happened in the next few hours. Earth itself hung in the balance. "Send the secret message to all ship captains," Martinez ordered. "Tell them to activate Protocol 7, and may whatever gods watch over us have mercy on those aliens, because we are about to show them what happens when you threaten humanity." Lisa Park's fingers moved quickly over her controls. The secret message went out to every human ship in the fleet. Captains who had been pretending to be scared suddenly smiled cold smiles. Crews who had been acting nervous began checking weapons that officially did not exist. Jake thought about his family back on Earth, his wife Sarah and their 2 kids. The aliens wanted to kill them, wanted to turn Earth into ash like they had done to the colonies. Well, they were about to learn that humans protected what they loved. And when humans went to war, they did not just fight to win. They fought to make sure no one would ever threaten their families again. The Zephyrians thought they knew about war. They had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved entire species. Their ships had weapons that could crack planets. But they had never fought humans before. They had never faced an enemy that could be both completely ruthless and perfectly merciful at the same time. Captain Rodriguez checked her weapon systems one more time. Everything was ready. The secret weapons were charged and waiting. The special fighters were loaded with pilots who had been changed by human science, made faster, made stronger, made into living weapons that could do impossible things. "Sir," she said to Martinez, "all ships report ready." "The aliens don't know what's coming." Martinez nodded. He felt sad for what was about to happen. War was always terrible, even when it was necessary. But the aliens had made their choice when they decided humans should die. Now they would learn the price of that choice. In a few hours, the Battle of Titan's Shadow would begin. The aliens would discover that humans were not the weak prey they had expected. They would learn that mercy and brutality could exist in the same heart. They would understand why the rule of mercy was not kindness, but the cruelest form of psychological warfare ever devised. One survivor would live to tell the tale. One witness would carry the message back to the alien worlds. One voice would spread the word about what happened when you threatened humanity. The galaxy was about to learn a new lesson about the species from the 3rd planet around a yellow star. They were about to discover that humans did not just fight wars. They ended them. Permanently. Jake looked out at the enemy fleet one more time. Soon, most of those ships would be debris. Their crews would be dead. Their mighty empire would be broken. And it would all happen because they had made one simple mistake. They had threatened Earth. They had threatened humanity's children. And no force in the galaxy was strong enough to protect them from what that mistake would cost. The rule of mercy was about to teach the universe a lesson it would never forget. The space around Saturn's biggest moon exploded into light and fire. Red laser beams cut through the darkness like angry swords. Metal ships twisted and broke apart. Bodies floated in the cold vacuum. The Battle of Titan's Shadow had begun, and it was not going the way the aliens had expected. War Prime Kethfall stood on his command ship watching his fleet die. He had been so sure this would be easy. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. They made medicines and art and peace treaties. They did not make war, but the ships exploding around him told a different story. "War Prime," his aide said with a shaking voice. "We have lost 400 ships in the first hour. The humans fight like nothing we have ever seen." Kethfall could not believe it. 400 ships gone. Good ships with experienced crews. How was this possible? The humans only had 200 vessels total. By all logic, they should be running or dead by now. Lieutenant Commander Ben Foster watched from his ship as human fighters did things that should have been impossible. The small craft moved like living things, twisting and turning in ways that made no sense. Their pilots had been changed by human science, enhanced, made into something more than normal people. The fighter pilots could think faster than computers. Their reflexes were quicker than machines. They could handle forces that would crush ordinary humans. Each pilot was like a weapon with a brain, and they were cutting through the alien fleet like fire through paper. "Sir, the enemy's 3rd group is breaking apart," said Rachel Kim from her tactical station. "They have lost almost half their ships and the rest are trying to run." Captain Nina Brooks nodded. She had commanded cargo ships before the war started. Peaceful ships that carried food and supplies between colonies. She never thought she would be in charge of destroying an entire alien fleet. But here she was, watching enemy ships die on her screens and feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. The human secret weapons revealed themselves one by one. Ships that had been invisible suddenly appeared and struck at the heart of alien formations. Nobody had seen them coming. The aliens had no idea humans could make ships disappear from their sensors. Big human warships fired beams of pure energy that cut alien vessels in half. The weapons were based on new science that the galaxy had never seen. While other species had been building bigger guns, humans had been inventing entirely new ways to kill. Most terrifying were the converted colony ships. These huge vessels had once carried families to new worlds. Now their cargo holds were full of tiny robot fighters. Thousands of them poured out like metal insects, swarming over alien ships and tearing them apart piece by piece. Each robot was small and weak by itself, but together they were unstoppable. They could repair each other, learn from each battle, and multiply their numbers using materials from destroyed enemy ships. They were like a disease made of metal and circuits. War Prime Kethval watched in horror as his flagship's escort ships died around him. The robots covered their hulls like a plague, cutting through armor with tiny but deadly tools. His proud warriors, veterans of a dozen conquered worlds, were being killed by machines no bigger than his fist. War Prime, Zekthar reported. Our losses are beyond calculation. We have lost more than half our fleet. The humans have weapons we did not know existed. We should retreat while we still can. But Kethval's pride was wounded deeper than his fleet. He was War Prime of the Zephyrian Empire. He had never lost a battle, never retreated from an enemy. The idea of running from these weak humans was unthinkable. No, he roared, his forearms shaking with rage. Signal all remaining ships. Attack the human command vessel directly. If we can kill their leaders, their fleet will fall apart. It was a desperate plan, but it was all he had left. His 3,000 ships had become 1,500, then 800, then even fewer. The humans fought with a precision and brutality that spoke of careful planning and hidden capabilities. Admiral Martinez watched from the bridge of the Vigilance as the alien flagship tried to break through human lines. Around it, the last groups of enemy ships made their final desperate attack. They were brave, he had to admit. Stupid, but brave. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez reported. We have identified their command ship. Our weapons are locked on target. We can end this now. Martinez studied the tactical display. One alien ship remained functional among all the floating wreckage. Intelligence reports said War Prime Kethval himself commanded that vessel, the alien leader who had threatened to destroy Earth and enslave humanity. No weapons, Martinez said, quietly. Do not fire. Rodriguez looked confused. Sir, after what they did to our colonies, after they tried to destroy Earth? The rule of mercy, Captain. We need one survivor to tell the story. Around them, the last alien fighters died in brilliant flashes of light. The great Zephyrian fleet, the terror of 7 star systems, was nothing but debris and memory now. In less than 6 hours, humans had destroyed the most powerful military force in 3 sectors of space. Captain Rodriguez still looked uncertain, but Admiral, he is their leader. He ordered the attack on our colonies. Those people died because of him. Martinez turned to look at the alien flagship on his screen. It was dead in space, its weapons destroyed and engines silent. Inside that ship was the alien who had thought humans were weak, who had believed Earth would be an easy conquest. Yes, Captain. And now he gets to live with what happened here. He gets to go home and explain to his people how 3,000 ships became 1. He gets to tell them what humans can do when we decide to stop being nice. The battle was over, but the real victory was just beginning. War Prime Kethval would return to his home world carrying a message that would spread across the galaxy, like wildfire. A message about what happened when you threatened humanity. Dr. Helen Carter worked in the medical bay, treating wounded aliens pulled from destroyed ships. Her hands moved with practiced skill, saving lives that hours ago had been trying to end human civilization. It was strange work, healing your enemies, but it was part of the plan. Why do you help us? Asked a wounded Zephyrian soldier. We came to kill your people. Dr. Carter paused in her work. Because we are not monsters. We are just very good at protecting what we love. The alien soldier looked confused. In his culture, Enemies were killed or enslaved. Mercy was weakness. But these humans showed mercy while demonstrating overwhelming strength. It was a combination he did not understand. Colonel Steve Murphy processed alien prisoners with the same care Dr. Carter showed the wounded. Each captured enemy received food, medical attention, and communication with their families. It was psychological, warfare of the most sophisticated kind. The message was clear. Humans could be completely ruthless in battle and completely compassionate in victory. They could destroy your fleet and then heal your wounded. They could kill your friends and then feed your family. It was more unsettling than simple brutality. As repair crews towed the alien flagship toward human space, War Prime Kethval began to understand the true horror of his situation. He had expected to die in glorious battle, but instead faced something far worse. He would live, but he would live knowing that his species had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Martinez, he said during their final communication before his ship was taken away. Your mercy is crueler than any weapon. Martinez nodded slowly. That is the point, War Prime. Fear of human brutality would make us enemies for life. Fear of human mercy makes us inevitable. The Battle of Titan's shadow was over. The Zephyrian Empire's fleet was destroyed. But the real war was just beginning. Now came the part where one survivor would carry humanity's message to every corner of the galaxy. The rule of mercy was working exactly as planned. War Prime Kethval sat in his broken command chair and tried to understand what had happened. His mighty fleet was gone. 3,000 ships reduced to floating metal and dead bodies. His proud warriors were either dead or prisoners. And he was alive only because the humans wanted him to be. The human admiral's face appeared on his damaged screen. Kethval had expected to see triumph in those eyes. Victory. The joy of conquest. Instead, he saw something that disturbed him more. Sadness. Weariness. The look of a man who had done terrible things because he had to, not because he wanted to. War Prime, Admiral Martinez said. Your fleet is destroyed. Your people are dead or captured. But I am giving you something your species did not give our colonists. A chance to live. Kethval's forearms shook with confusion and rage. In all his battles across the galaxy, no enemy had ever offered mercy to the defeated. Winners took everything. Losers died. That was the way of war. That was the way of the universe. What do you want from me, human? Kethval asked. His voice was broken like his ship and his pride. Simple, Martinez replied. You will see what happened here. You will remember every detail. Then you will go home and tell your people exactly what humanity can do when threatened. You will tell them we prefer peace, but we are very good at war. Around them, human ships moved through the wreckage with careful precision. Kethval watched through his broken windows as human crews collected the bodies of his warriors. They were not thrown into space like garbage, they were treated with respect. Wrapped carefully and prepared for burial according to Zephyrian custom. It was a small thing, but it shook Kethval more than the destruction of his fleet. These humans had killed his people with ruthless efficiency, then honored their dead with gentle care. What kind of enemy did such things? The few survivors from his fleet were taken to human medical ships. Kethval expected them to be tortured or killed. Instead, human doctors worked to save their lives. Alien wounded who had come to destroy Earth were being healed by the very people they had tried to murder. Dr. Helen Carter was in charge of treating the alien wounded. Her hands, which had performed surgery for 20 years, worked to repair the damage human weapons had caused. She moved from bed to bed, saving lives without regard for species or allegiance. Why? Kethval asked when she came to check his own minor injuries. Why do you heal those who came to kill you? Dr. Carter paused in her work. She had been asked this question many times in the past few hours. Because that is who we are, she said simply. We are not monsters, War Prime. We are just very good at protecting what we love. But Kethval could see deeper than her words. This was not simple kindness. This was strategy. Every healed alien would return home with stories of human mercy. Every survivor would carry the message that humans could kill you or save you, depending on their mood. It was the most sophisticated form of psychological warfare he had ever encountered. Colonel Steve Murphy ran the prisoner processing center with the efficiency of a man who had done this job many times before. Each captured Zephyrian received proper food, clean water, medical care, and communication with their families back home. They were treated better than prisoners in most civilized worlds. "Your families know you are alive," Murphy told each prisoner, personally. "They know you are being treated well. When this is over, you will go home to them." The prisoners were confused and frightened. They had been taught that humans were weak and soft. But these humans had destroyed their fleet with cold precision, then treated the survivors with unexpected kindness. It was more unsettling than simple cruelty would have been. A young Zephyrian soldier named Kexmar approached Murphy with trembling hands. "Colonel, I do not understand. We came to enslave your people, to destroy your worlds. Why do you treat us with such care?" Murphy looked at the young alien and saw fear in his eyes, not fear of death or torture, but fear of something he could not comprehend. "Because we want you to remember this moment, soldier. We want you to tell your children and their children about what you saw here." As the days passed, Kethvol's ship was slowly repaired by human engineers. They fixed his engines, restored his life support, and even cleaned the blood from his command deck. But they did not repair his weapons. The message was clear. He was being allowed to leave, but not to fight. Captain Rodriguez visited him regularly during the repairs. She brought him food and water, and they talked about the battle, not as enemies but as military professionals discussing tactics and strategy. "Your fleet fought bravely," Rodriguez admitted during one conversation. "Your warriors died with honor. But you made one critical mistake." "What mistake?" Kethvol asked, though he feared the answer. "You thought mercy was weakness. You thought compassion meant we could not fight. You confused our desire for peace with inability to wage war." Kethvol understood now. Humanity's mercy was not kindness. It was a weapon more terrible than any gun or bomb. Every survivor would carry the fear home. Every witness would spread the story. The galaxy would learn to fear human compassion more than human violence. Engineer Lisa Park worked on repairing the alien ship's communication systems. She made sure they worked perfectly, that every message would reach its destination clearly. The War Prime would need to communicate with his government, and humanity wanted that communication to be very clear. "Your long-range communications are fully operational," Park reported to Kethvol. "You can contact your homeworld whenever you wish." But Kethvol did not want to make that call. How could he explain what had happened? How could he tell the Zephyrian High Command that their mighty fleet had been destroyed by a species they had dismissed as weak? How could he describe an enemy that showed perfect mercy after demonstrating perfect ruthlessness? Dr. Carter made one final visit before his departure. She checked his health, ensured he was fit to travel, and gave him medical supplies for the journey home. Her care was professional and thorough. "War Prime," she said as she finished her examination. "I want you to understand something. We did not want this battle. We offered you peace and you chose war. What happened to your fleet was your choice, not ours." "But the mercy you show now?" Kethvol asked. "That is also our choice?" Dr. Carter smiled sadly. "No. That is who we are. We kill when we must and heal when we can. Your people will learn the difference." As his ship prepared to depart, Kethvol received one final message from Admiral Martinez. The human leader appeared on his screen, looking older and more tired than before. "War Prime," Martinez said, "you asked me once if our mercy was cruel. I will give you an honest answer. Yes, it is the cruelest weapon we possess. You will spend the rest of your life knowing that your species underestimated us. You will carry that knowledge home and spread it to every corner of your empire." "Why?" Kethvol asked. "Why not just kill me and end it?" "Because dead martyrs inspire revenge. Living witnesses inspire caution. The galaxy needs to learn that humanity prefers peace, but we are exceptional at alternatives. As his repaired ship limped away from the battlefield, Kethval looked back, one last time at the human fleet. They had not pursued him, had not demanded tribute or territory. They had simply let him go, knowing that his survival was more valuable than his death. He was no longer war prime of a mighty fleet. He was now something far worse in the eyes of his people. He was a failure, a survivor, a living reminder of the day the Zephyrian Empire learned that some enemies are too dangerous to fight. The rule of mercy was working perfectly. One witness would become 1,000 voices, and fear would spread faster than any human ship could travel. 3 months after the Battle of Titan's Shadow, War Prime Kethval stood before the grand assembly of Zephyrian houses. The great crystal hall that had once echoed with songs of victory now filled with shocked silence. The most powerful military, leaders of 7 star systems sat frozen in their seats, unable to believe what they were hearing. Honored houses, Kethval began, his voice barely a whisper. I bring news of our fleet and the enemy we awakened. High Counselor Vextar leaned forward in her ancient chair. She was old even by Zephyrian standards, and had seen the rise of their empire from a single world to a galactic power. Never had she heard such defeat in a War Prime's voice. Speak clearly, War Prime. What happened to our armada? Gone, Kethval replied. 3,000 ships and their crews, turned to dust and memory. The humans fight like no species we have ever faced. The nobles erupted in angry shouts and disbelief. Some called him a coward. Others demanded proof. But Kethval continued his terrible report, describing weapons that broke the laws of physics and tactics that seemed impossible to counter. Most disturbing of all, he told them about an enemy that showed calculated mercy as a demonstration of power. An enemy that healed the wounded they had created and honored the dead they had killed. It was warfare beyond their understanding. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as word of humanity's victory spread like wildfire. The Valdorian Trade Consortium, who had sold weapons to the Zephyrian fleet, immediately recalled all their merchant ships from human space. Better to lose money than to lose everything. The crystalline hegemony, ancient enemies of Earth who had been planning their own attack, quietly began peace talks through neutral intermediaries. Their crystal cities, which had stood for 10,000 years, suddenly seemed very fragile when compared to human military might. On the frontier world of New Geneva, Ambassador Patricia Walsh found herself busier than she had ever been. Her modest office became the unofficial center of galactic diplomacy, as species that had ignored humanity for centuries suddenly wanted to talk. The terms are simple, Walsh explained to the assembled alien delegates. Her conference room was packed with representatives from dozens of worlds. Respect human territory, trade fairly with us, and we remain friends. Threaten our people or our allies, and you will learn why the Zephyrians no longer have a war fleet. Trade. Minister Kilinaros of the hegemony shifted nervously in his chair. His crystalline body reflected the room's lights in patterns that showed his fear. Ambassador, what other weapons do humans possess? What capabilities have you kept hidden? Walsh smiled, and somehow that smile was both warm and terrifying. Minister, that is the beauty of our rule of mercy. Every survivor teaches a lesson, every witness spreads the word. The galaxy is learning that we prefer peace, but we have other talents when peace fails. The message was spreading faster than any human ship could travel. Survivors from the battle told their stories in spaceport bars and military academies. Each telling grew in the telling, until humanity became a species of mythical warriors who could destroy fleets with a thought. Captain Andy Johnson commanded the patrol ship Watchful Eye, which cruised the edges of human space. Every day brought new alien scout ships trying to measure human defenses and count human weapons. He let them look, knowing that what they saw would only add to humanity's growing reputation. Captain, Lieutenant Maria Santos reported from her communication station. Another hegemony probe ship on long-range sensors. Same pattern as yesterday. Johnson nodded with satisfaction. Let them count our ships, Lieutenant. Let them measure our defenses and calculate the odds. The more they know about our strength, the less likely they are to test it. It was true. Construction crews worked around the clock to build new defensive platforms, upgrade colonial shields, and expand the fleet. But more importantly, they worked where alien spies could see them. Every new ship launched was a message. Every defense platform built was a warning. The psychological warfare was more effective than any physical weapon. Fear spread through the galaxy like a plague, carried by traders and diplomats and the few survivors of Titan's shadow. Humanity had become the species you did not fight, not because they would not fight back, but because they would win too completely. Dr. Helen Carter found herself invited to medical conferences on worlds that had never welcomed humans before. Alien species wanted to learn human healing techniques, hoping that medical cooperation might earn them protection from human military might. "Doctor," asked a Valdorian physician during one such conference, "your people show great skill in both destruction and creation. How do you balance such opposing forces?" Carter considered the question carefully. "We do not see them as opposing. Healing and fighting are both forms of protection. We heal what we can and fight what we must. The choice of which response you receive is usually yours to make." The alien doctor's tentacles writhed with nervous energy. Like many of his species, he was beginning to understand that humanity's mercy was conditional. Cross them, and the healers became warriors. Threaten them, and the diplomats became generals. Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, Kethevol received daily reports from across their remaining territory. Colonies were requesting human protection from pirates. Trade worlds were offering tribute in exchange for guarantees of safety. The proud empire was becoming a collection of frightened planets, all looking to humanity for leadership. "War Prime," his aide Zekthar reported with shaking hands. "The outer colonies have voted to request human military assistance. They fear the Sindari Empire will attack while we are weak." Kethevol felt the bitter irony of the situation. His people who had sought to conquer humanity were now begging for human protection. The rule of mercy had turned former enemies into desperate allies. His communication system chimed with an incoming message. Admiral Martinez appeared on the screen, looking tired but alert. These regular calls had become part of their strange, new relationship. "War Prime," Martinez said. "Our intelligence suggests the Sindari Empire is planning military action against your remaining colonies. We thought you should know." "And humanity's position on such action?" Kethevol asked, though he suspected the answer. "The same as always. We prefer peaceful solutions, but we have grown fond of our Zephyrian friends. It would be unfortunate if someone mistook your current weakness for lack of protection." The message was clear without being stated directly. Humanity now extended its protection to former enemies who had learned wisdom. Attack the weakened Zephyrians and you would face the same fate as their warfleet. Across the galaxy, other species watched and learned. The Aquilian Federation announced they were implementing their own version of mercy protocols in border conflicts. The hegemony began leaving survivors in their territorial disputes, claiming it was more effective than total victory. Humanity had not just won a battle. They had changed the nature of galactic warfare itself. Other species were copying human tactics, trying to achieve the same psychological dominance that Earth now wielded. Ambassador Walsh hosted another diplomatic reception, watching as former enemies mingled with old allies under the protection of human friendship. Species that had warred for centuries now worked together, united by their shared understanding of what happened to those who crossed humanity. "Ambassador," asked a young Zephyrian diplomat, "will humanity ever forgive what my people tried to do?" Walsh considered the question while watching the mixed crowd of aliens eating human food and discussing trade agreements. "Forgiveness is not the right word," she said finally. "Understanding is better. We understand that your people made a mistake. We understand that you have learned from that mistake, and we understand that former enemies can become valuable friends." The rule of mercy had accomplished something no galactic empire had ever managed. It had created peace through the fear of war, built cooperation through the demonstration of power, and turned mercy itself into the most feared weapon in the galaxy. War Prime, Kethval, now more diplomat than warrior, smiled sadly as he prepared another report for the Zephyrian High Command. He had survived to carry humanity's message, and in doing so, had helped create a new galactic order built on the understanding that some species were too dangerous to fight and too valuable to ignore. The galaxy remembered just as humanity had intended. 5 years after the Battle of Titan's Shadow, the galaxy had changed completely. Human space had grown 3 times larger, not through conquest, but through treaties and defensive agreements. Former enemies lined up to become allies, and trade flowed between worlds that had once threatened to destroy each other. Grand Admiral Carlos Martinez stood in his orbital headquarters above Earth, watching the daily parade of alien ships seeking meetings with human authorities. Vessels that once carried weapons of war now arrived loaded with trade goods and gifts. The transformation was remarkable, but it required constant attention to maintain. "Daily report, Admiral," announced Fleet Captain Amy Rodriguez, her rank elevated after her crucial role in the Great Victory. "The Zephyrian remnant has completed their reparation payments for the Centauri colonies. The hegemony wants permission to build a trade embassy on Luna, and the Valdorian Consortium is asking for exclusive rights to manufacture human defensive technologies." Martinez nodded as he reviewed the reports. Peace was good for business, but it needed careful management. "Any word from our deep space patrols?" Captain Foster's exploration of the outer spiral has found 3 more civilizations that might pose future threats. All of them have already received detailed reports about our military capabilities, courtesy of Zephyrian survivors who spread the word. The rule of mercy had evolved beyond simple battlefield tactics. It had become the foundation of human diplomatic strategy, ensuring that potential enemies understood the cost of aggression before they committed to hostile action. Fear prevented more wars than weapons ever could. Dr. Helen Carter now directed the Galactic Medical Exchange Program, turning healing into another form of soft power. Alien species that had never trusted each other worked side by side in human hospitals, learning that cooperation brought benefits conquest never could. "The most interesting development," Rodriguez continued, "is that other species are copying our mercy protocols. The Aquilian Federation just announced they are implementing witness procedures in their border conflicts. They leave survivors to carry messages, just like we do." Martinez smiled at the irony. Humanity had intended to terrify the galaxy into peace, but instead had taught them more effective ways to wage it. "Any requests for military assistance?" "The usual dozen or so. Colony worlds threatened by pirates, trade routes attacked by raiders, territorial disputes needing neutral arbitration, all offering substantial payment for human intervention." Our standard response? We investigate the situation, offer mediation, services, and if necessary, demonstrate why cooperation works better than conflict. The human military had become the galaxy's police force, not through conquest, but through reputation. A single human ship arriving in a disputed system was often enough to end conflicts that had raged for decades. Nobody wanted to be the next species to test humanity's patience. In the depths of space, War Prime Kethvol commanded a single vessel now, patrolling what remained of Zephyrian territory. His ship, ironically renamed the Witness by human engineers, who had repaired it, served as a living reminder of the price of challenging humanity. His communication system activated with a familiar signal. Admiral Martinez appeared on screen, their regular diplomatic contact continuing after all these years. "War Prime," Martinez said, looking older but still alert. "Our intelligence suggests the Sindari Empire is considering military action against your remaining colonies. We thought you should know." Kethavol's response had become routine over the years, but no less genuine. "And humanity's position on such action?" "The same as always. We prefer peaceful solutions, but we have grown fond of our Zephyrian friends. It would be unfortunate if someone mistook your current situation for lack of protection." The message was clear, without being threatening. Humanity now extended its rule of mercy to cover former enemies who had learned wisdom. The galaxy's new order was built not on conquest or submission, but on the understanding that humanity's friendship was both gift and shield. Ambassador Patricia Walsh had moved from her small frontier office to a massive diplomatic complex on Earth. Delegations from hundreds of worlds sought audience with human leadership, hoping to secure trade agreements, defense pacts, or simply reassurance that they remained in humanity's good graces. "Ambassador," asked Minister Kel Naros during his monthly visit, "how long will humanity maintain this policy of protection for reformed enemies?" Walsh considered the question, while looking out at the bustling spaceport where alien ships arrived hourly. "Minister, that depends entirely on those former enemies. As long as they remember the lessons of Titan's shadow, they remain under our protection. The moment they forget, they discover why remembering was important." The crystalline hegemony had become one of humanity's most reliable allies, their ancient wisdom complementing human innovation in ways that benefited both species. Their crystal cities now housed human research stations, while human colonies used hegemony technology to build more efficient infrastructure. Captain Andy Johnson, now Admiral Johnson, commanded an entire patrol fleet that monitored the galaxy's trouble spots. His ships were welcomed at every port, feared by every pirate, and respected by every government. The human flag had become a symbol of stability in an often chaotic universe. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos reported during their weekly briefing, "We have 3 new requests for intervention. The Outer Rim colonies want help with raider attacks. The Tau sector has a territorial dispute between 2 minor powers, and the Sindari Empire has formally requested mediation in their conflict with the hegemony." Johnson reviewed the requests with practiced efficiency. Each intervention was an opportunity to demonstrate human capability while reinforcing the message that cooperation was preferable to conflict. "Standard protocols for all 3 situations, and make sure our response times are visible to other potential troublemakers." The psychological impact was carefully calculated. Human ships arrived quickly at trouble spots, resolved conflicts efficiently, and departed without demanding payment or territory. It was power projection of the most sophisticated kind, showing strength while emphasizing restraint. Dr. Carter received a communication from the Zephyrian Medical Council, requesting her assistance with a plague outbreak on one of their frontier worlds. 5 years ago, such a request would have been unthinkable. Now it was routine. "Doctor," the Zephyrian physician said during their video conference, "our people are dying, and we lack the knowledge to help them. Will humanity assist former enemies?" Carter's response came without hesitation. "We will send a medical team immediately. When people are suffering, past conflicts become irrelevant. That is what mercy means." Within hours, human medical ships were departing for Zephyrian space, carrying doctors and supplies to fight a disease that threatened millions of alien lives. The crews knew they would receive no payment beyond gratitude, but that was enough. Helping others was part of what made humanity human. War Prime Kethval watched the human medical ships pass through his patrol area and felt a complex mixture of emotions. These were the same people who had destroyed his fleet, yet they rushed to save his people without being asked. It was mercy and power combined in ways his warrior culture still struggled to understand. As he ended another routine patrol, Kethval reflected on the strange path that had brought him from conqueror to guardian. He had survived to carry humanity's message, but in doing so had become something he never expected. He was no longer just a witness to human power, but a protector of the peace that power had created. The rule of mercy had transformed not just the galaxy's balance of power, but its very understanding of strength. Across 1,000 worlds, former enemies worked together under the watchful protection of a species that had proven compassion could be more powerful than conquest. Children of dozens of species learned human languages in school. Alien universities taught courses on human philosophy and military strategy. The story of Titan's shadow was told in 100 different ways, but the message was always the same. Humanity offered friendship to those who chose peace and demonstrated the alternative to those who chose war. Martinez stood on his observation deck one final time, watching Earth turn slowly beneath him. The planet that had once faced extinction now served as the unofficial capital of galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through the patient application of mercy backed by overwhelming force. The galaxy remembered just as humanity had intended, and in remembering, it had chosen peace.